All right, let's talk about a book that, well, it gets a lot of attention. Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. You've probably heard of it. Is it this super cynical guide to manipulating everyone around you? Or is it actually a practical manual for, just navigating the real world? One thing's for sure, its impact is massive. So we're going to dive in and break down what this book is really all about.
So to really get this book, we have to start with a question that probably hits home for a lot of us. Have you ever just felt totally powerless? In your job, maybe in your relationships, just in everyday life. That feeling that you have absolutely no control over what's happening to you? That's right where the book begins.
And the book's author, Robert Greene, he argues that this feeling, it's just unbearable for us as humans. It's not about being greedy or wanting to dominate people. No, he says the desire for power is really just a fundamental need to have some say in our own lives, some agency. When we don't have it, well, we feel miserable. And that right there, that's the core problem this whole book is trying to tackle.
Okay, so how does the book explain why we feel this way? It all starts with something called the courtier's dilemma. This is what he calls the central paradox of power in our modern world.
See, on the surface, everything seems pretty straightforward, right? Society tells us, hey, be fair, be a decent person, be democratic. We're all taught to play by these rules. Be honest, treat everyone as an equal. This is the official rule book for how the world is supposed to work. But, and this is the book's big but, the central claim here is that underneath that nice, civilized surface, the real world is a whole different beast. It's described as a giant, scheming court. Yeah, like an old royal court from centuries ago. It's a game of strategy, of hidden motives, where what you don't say is often more important than what you do say.
And this leads us to maybe the most radical idea in the whole book. If the world is this giant court, then power is basically a game. And here's the kicker. You can't opt out. You just can't choose not to play.
Yeah, the book is super blunt about this. It basically says, look, if we're all trapped in the scheming court, then trying to opt out of the game is pointless. All that does is make you powerless. You don't get to escape the game, you just end up becoming a piece on the board for somebody else who is playing.
And this is where it gets really mind-bending. The book's logic is that even when you declare, I'm not playing this game, well, according to the book, that declaration is a power move. There are no sidelines. Everything is part of the game.
And just think about some of the examples the book gives for these so-called non-player moves. Someone displaying their weakness, that can be a very effective way to get sympathy and support. Or someone demanding total equality, maybe that's a move to get a bigger piece of the pie. Even being perfectly, brutally honest can be a tactic to make yourself seem more noble than everyone else. It's all about looking at the hidden motives. Okay, so if we're all stuck in this game and can't get out, then the big question is, how do you play it? Well, the 48 laws themselves can be broken down into a few major themes that really show you the core strategies of the book.
First step, and this is a big one, mastering your reputation and your image. The book hammers this home again and again. Perception is reality. It's not about who you actually are, it's about who people think you are. A huge chunk of these laws are all about consciously building and protecting that public image.
And this brings us to laws like number 5. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. The title says it all, right? The idea here is that your reputation is everything. It's the foundation of your power. One little mistake can completely destroy it. So you have to be constantly on guard, watching for any attacks on it. Again, it all comes back to perception.
All right, this whole focus on perception and image naturally leads to the next big theme, which is all about how you actually deal with people. We're talking about mastering strategic interaction with your friends, your rivals, and your enemies.
And this is where things get really controversial, where the book's famously amoral viewpoint really comes out. Let's take a look at Law 15, crush your enemy totally. Yikes. The logic is brutal but simple. If you only half defeat an enemy, they're just going to come back stronger and looking for revenge. But a totally crushed enemy, well, they can't. It's a super practical, almost chillingly results-focused way to look at conflict.
The third theme really gets to the heart of what it means to be a modern courtier in this world the book describes. It's all about concealment and indirection. Basically, it's the art of getting what you want without anyone ever figuring out what you were really up to.
So you get laws like conceal your intentions and always say less than necessary. The whole point is to create this aura of mystery around yourself. The book argues that the less people know about your real plans, the less they can do to stop you. You become unpredictable. It's all about being strategically vague.
But here's a really crucial point the book makes. Just knowing all these laws, that's not enough. Not even close. To actually use them, you need a completely different mindset. It's the foundation of everything.
It's stressed over and over again. These laws are basically useless if you haven't mastered yourself first. Without a rock-solid foundation of self-control, all these clever tactics are just going to blow up in your face. In this worldview, real power, it starts inside you.
So what does that internal foundation look like? Well, it's built on a few key things. First, you have to master your emotions. Things like anger or frustration, they just cloud your judgment. Then there's patience. The book describes patience as a kind of shield, something that protects you from making dumb, impulsive mistakes. It's all about being calm and collected on the inside before you make any move on the outside.
And then there's maybe the most difficult part of all, adopting what the book calls an amoral perspective. Okay, what does that even mean? It means you have to stop thinking in terms of good and evil. Instead, you just look at circumstances. You judge people's actions by what actually happens, the effects, not by what they meant to do. It's all about results, not intentions.
So, after walking you through this really complex, and let's be honest, often pretty unsettling view of the world, the book basically turns to you, the reader, and leaves you with a really big choice.
And this final quote really brings it all home. The argument is basically this. Since you can't escape the game, you've really only got 3 choices. Option 1, you can deny the game even exists, and you'll probably get crushed. Option 2, you can play it badly, be a bungler, and just make a mess of things for yourself and everyone else. Or option 3, you can become an artist of power.
And that, right there, is the big, provocative question that this book leaves you with. It lays out its case that power is a game that we're all playing, whether we admit it or not. So the only real question left is, how are you going to play?